joining us. Now, we have the tweet. We have somebody's tweet that we're going to show on the screen. Let's bring him aboard. He does a wonderful job on our All PHLY Flyers show. And let's just tell him to stick to hockey. Hello, Charlie O'Connor.
Hey, how's it going?
What's up, buddy? How are you?
Doing good.
Did you watch any baseball last night?
Sure did. It was a great game.
Let's see a tweet. Hold on. I think this is one of your tweets. Huh. Can you see that, Charlie?
I do.
Now, would you like to edit that tweet?
No.
No!
I would not.
Well, you're a
Nope.
stubborn SOB. Charlie, Grover Alexander. Charlie, Juan Marichal, Robin Roberts. The start is historic. And you keep waiting for the regression. The regression to what? An ERA? Oh, he'll give up 2 runs?
I am still holding to the belief that I need to see this over a full season before I'm going to designate Ranger Suarez as an ace. And I love Ranger Suarez, but I'm not ready to do it after 2 really good months. I'm just not.
Okay, so my argument with you, like our butcher box beef, is this. It's not about an ace because Wheeler's the ace, right? Like
Right.
Wheeler's, like the playoffs start tomorrow. Wheeler's my game 1 starter. All right, like so, not even that. But my argument is the regression argument. Like I do think he can. Now listen, his streak is ridiculous, right? So he's certainly not going to keep this up. I mean, this is something that we've never seen, right? But my point is that you shouldn't have expected a regression when you go spring training without visa issues and health. Like he comes into this season, it was poised. And like, look, I mean, I said it before the season. So this is not like I'm telling you now on May 21st that he was going to have a big year because you could see that this was the year he would finally come into his own and that it didn't matter what was on the back of his baseball card because this year there was no hassles, no injuries. It was the perfect kind of calmness going into the year for him.
Yeah, and at this point, given the fact that he's already banked 2 months of incredible production, I imagine that by the end of the year, even if he does regress, his overall numbers are going to look great. And that's awesome. I love Ranger Suarez. I just do not view him as a star level pitcher until he goes out and is a star level pitcher for a full year. Like he's not the only pitcher so far this year who's off to an amazing start. Like I don't consider Reynaldo Lopez to be a star level pitcher, even though right now he's got a 1.54 ERA for the Braves. I don't consider, Shota Imanaga with the Cubs a star level pitcher, even though he through 2 months has a sub 1 ERA.
Oh, he's different.
They're having great starts. They're having great starts, but I want to see them do it for a full year before I believe they are true star players.
Okay, well, there's a couple things. One, when you look at Managua coming from Japan, he was a star in Japan. So the guy's got ridiculous stuff. So I have no problem saying. I mean, it depends on what you call the play a star. Like I look at him, like I look at Ranger and I go, listen, he's a. I don't even want to call it a 1-2 type of player, like type of pitcher. Like you can look at him in that realm. Lopez is a little bit different. We've also seen Ranger do it in the playoffs, right? So you see he has these moments where he could be just unhittable. So I guess my point is that I believe, maybe not to this level, but I believe that this is, how effective he can be.
I would love to believe that he is that now they have 2, maybe 3 aces, depending upon how you feel about Aaron Nola. I would love to believe that. And if he can keep this up, that's great. I mean, I'm a huge Ranger Suarez fan. I feel like this has kind of been spun by some people on social media that I don't love Ranger.
He's
I love
fun.
Ranger.
I just love busting stones. Yeah.
But I worry.
It's a fun with the bust balls. I mean, that's what sports is.
Yeah. I worry that people will get too excited about this. And then when he goes through struggles, people will get overly frustrated with him. I think that's really my big concern, because I don't expect, like, let's be honest, the type of pitcher that he is, a low velocity lefty, like, this is not the kind of pitcher that in today's game tends to sustain this level of production. I mean, the game has turned to basically everybody needs to be throwing 96 miles an hour as a starter to be a top tier starter. Now, I'm not saying he can't do it. I'm just saying that he would be a substantial outlier if he can continue to produce this level of production with a 92-mile-an-hour fastball. You know what I mean?
Except, again, I covered that Braves staff, right? I remember covering baseball and watching, Glavine and, Maddox. And again, those guys weren't humming it. Now, you want to say about today's game's different, but pitching's still pitching, right? Like the art of pitching, it doesn't matter if it's, 1995 or 2024. It's still about the art of pitching. You change speeds, you hit your spot, you got some decent movement, right? Like you're around the plate and you're effortless in your delivery, right? There's not a lot of taxing in your arm. And by the way, I can make the argument that it's great if you could be, Skeens and throw 106, but at some point they'll be able to barrel you up. It's just always about timing.
Yeah, and I mean, the big thing with Ranger this year, why he's been so good, is that his command has been unreal. And also, I think there's two reasons why. Number one, his command has been ridiculous. Number two, he turned his changeup, which was just a decent pitch before, into, like, legitimately so far this year one of the best pitches in baseball. And if that holds, and if he can continue to locate these pitches and locate the changeup as well as he's done so far this year, he's going to stay this good. I just want to see him do it for a whole year before I put him on the level that I think people want to put him on. And it speaks to how popular he is. Like, everybody loves Rangers, so everybody wants to believe that this is real, you know?
Yeah. I maybe I give the populace too much credit, but I mean, I don't think that there's going to be something like, he he has a bad start or he starts to have a bad stretch, which is inevitable during a long baseball season. I mean, I don't believe that they're going to just all of a sudden jump off and, he stays a bum. I think those days are from yesteryear in Philadelphia. By the way, the big news of the day, Michkov with our man Charlie O'Connor, brought to you by TrueMark Financial Credit Union. Check out TrueMark.com/PHLY or stop at your local branch to learn more about the credit union difference at TrueMark Financial today. So let's talk about this, Chow. Let's talk about Michkov. I know you're translating Russian now.
Yeah, it's been a saga, and the saga continues. Right now, it's abundantly clear the Flyers are in sort of a wait and see mentality. Look, where this is at right now is Michkov right now is under contract for another 2 seasons with his Russian KHL team. But the higher ups with that KHL team over the last, really since the end of April, but it really kicked up over the past weekend, the higher ups with that KHL team have opened the door for the possibility that there could be a way that Michkov could find a way out of that contract. And generally speaking, KHL teams don't publicly open the door unless there is something relatively imminent. Like the Rotenberg, the guy who is essentially the coach / CEO of his KHL team, in the interview he gave this weekend, basically answered a bunch of questions about like 3 or 4 other guys that have like NHL teams that own their rights, and basically said, "Oh yeah, we're never letting any of those guys go. We want to keep them all." And then he was asked about Michkov, and he's like, "Well, we'll see." And that sends a clear message that they are very open to the possibility of Michkov getting out of this contract and coming over as soon as next season. That said, for that to happen, Michkov's camp has to work out an agreement with this KHL team, with SKA, to essentially buy out the rest of the contract. There's 2 more years left on the deal. And that's kind of where we're at. We're waiting to see if the two sides can come to some sort of financial agreement, financial understanding, where he would terminate that contract. And then I imagine the day that contract is terminated, about 5 minutes later, the Flyers would sign into an entry-level deal because they desperately want the guy.
Yeah, I mean, what do you hear from the Flyer statement? Because knowing those guys, and knowing how they feel about this whole thing. I think they'll try to move mountains to get it done.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the tough part about it for the Flyers is number one, they don't want to say anything publicly right now that could anger the Russians in charge of this whole process. Because
Right.
if they start speaking publicly as if this is a done deal, then those Russian guys running the team might get ticked off and then squash the whole thing. So they want to keep quiet for that reason. The other reason why they need to keep quiet is because technically the Flyers are not allowed to be part of this. With the way the rules are set up right now, only Michkov's camp can buy out the contract. The Flyers, by the rules, cannot just like transfer $5 million over to Matvei Michkov and say use this money to buy out the deal.
Get the
Now,
wire
look,
done.
now look, it's Russia. I'm not saying that the Flyers could not in some way be involved in this, but they certainly can't say it. They have to publicly take a very hands-off approach to this, and whether there's things they're doing in back channels, knowing the people running the Flyers, they are going to do whatever they possibly can do to get this guy over. But if they are doing all those things, they can't admit that they're doing all those things because technically they're not allowed to.
What do you make of the part of that report about him having to be on the first line and that sort of stuff?
Yeah, my understanding is that was kind of a mistranslation. It wasn't. It didn't really mean the first line. It more meant the first team, as in the NHL team. So basically, my read of that is that they were basically saying that, look, we're not going to terminate this contract and let Michkov leave, and then the Flyers are going to bring him over and stash him in the minors. Like, if you want him, you got to promise him that he's going to be on your NHL team, and there's not a major risk that you're going to send him down. That we're not going to get rid of him just so he can play minor league North American hockey, because otherwise we'll just have him play minor league Russian hockey. So it wasn't really first line. I think it was more NHL team. And look, like, the Flyers know how good this kid is. I would hope that they are not considering bringing him over and then telling him, sorry, you got to spend 3 months on buses going to Allentown. Like, come on.
Right. That's not happening. No, we know that. This portion of the Anthony Gargano Show brought to you by the Bet Park Sportsbook and Casino app. Download it right to your phone. So I need to know, and I trust your eyes. Who is he? Like, give me, when you break down his play, give me a couple so-and-so meets so-and-so, right? Like, who does he remind you of?
I think and this isn't an apples to apples comparison because they are different. I do think that Nikita Kucherov is probably a good comparable just in terms of skill, in terms of frame.
Wow.
Kucherov right now is a bit more built, but I'm not saying that Michkov over the next 10 years can't get more muscular and add that element to his game as he works out and gets
Kucherov,
stronger.
God, oh, please. He's ridiculous. I mean, the year that he had, oh, my God. Just thinking about having a Kucherov here is like, what? That would be incredible.
So, yeah, I mean, Kucherov is an obvious one, and that's partially just because of the Russian thing. But Russian players have a certain style. You know, they develop there, they learn certain habits. So there are similarities there. But, you know, it's tough because in a way, like, I think Kucherov he has a little bit more of a mean streak than Michkov does. Not to say Michkov isn't competitive, but like Kucherov has a little bit of dirty to his game. I don't think Michkov quite has that yet, but I think Michkov might have more flash, and Kucherov's a very flashy player. Yeah. But Michkov's the kind of guy who, like, once a game is going to try the Michigan. He's going to try the lacrosse style goal. Like, Michkov right now, at least at this stage of his career, like, he's always trying the super high difficulty plays, and the difference between him and a lot of other guys is that he can actually pull them off. So there's an element to Michkov where, like, I don't know if he's going to be better than Kucherov. Obviously, we're dreaming on this guy right now.
Right.
But this is a guy in Kucherov who blasted past 100 points this year. I mean, he scored an insane amount of points. And I think Michkov, if everything goes right, if the character is there, if he has the work ethic that he needs to have, you know, if he meshes with his teammates, if he meshes with his coaches, he could have that kind of ceiling. I think he really could.
Is he more goal scorer or a blend of playmaker, goal scorer? Like, his shot, like break that piece of it down for me.
I would definitely say he is more of a goal scorer than, and that's not to say he can't make passes. He is a really good passer. He has great vision. But I think at his core, he wants to score goals. And I wouldn't quite call it, because I know Flyers fans love the idea of having a sniper. I wouldn't call him a sniper. That's not to say he doesn't have a good shot. He does. He can wire the puck. But he scores a lot of goals in close with soft hands, with his dangles, by just popping up at the right time. He just has that goal scorer's mentality. He has a knack for getting the puck in places where the goals are scored. It's not like he's only going to be shooting from distance. Like, he has the ability to do that, but he thinks goal scoring, I think, more than anything. Now, he has the skill where if teams are selling out to stop him from shooting, he can find an open guy on the other side of the ice. He has those kind of puck skills. But I think first and foremost, he wants to score goals more than anything else.
That's awesome. You want to talk about exactly what they need? It's uncanny. And the other piece of irony is we just celebrated the 50-year anniversary of the Cup team. And, of course, that was Ed Snyder and, Keith Allen and the anti-Russian thing. They refused to sign Russian players. And even through the McGillneys and all those great players that came over, they want nothing to do with the Russians into the 90s. And here we are, and the mad Russian will become the savior of the franchise.
I will say that even knowing Ed Snyder and his well-established antipathy towards Russian players and whatnot, I guarantee you that Mr. Snyder, after going through the last 10 plus years of Flyers hell that fans have gone through and that he would have gone through, he would be like, I don't care. Get Michkov over here. I don't care if he's Russian or whatever.
I can tell you, as someone that knew Ed very well, yes, he would be he would be all about it. All about it. It was it's just interesting. Charlie, great stuff, brother, man. Really. So much fun, and we'll keep an eye out. That's why people got to make sure they follow you on Twitter, they read you, they watch the show daily. Make sure you become a diehard insider, because nobody like you, Charlie. You're on top of it, man.
Yeah, and I'm sure I'll be back on the next time Ranger has a great start for you to jab me a little bit.
Now, you're a good baseball man. You're a sportsman. I appreciate that. Thanks, brother. Great stuff, buddy.
All right. Thanks, Anthony.
Here he is, Charlie O'Connor.
We all silly like the mayor.